This is Captain Andrew from Sailor's Light, Back Bay Fishing of Wildwood, and this is one of our fish story segments, where I tell some of my more humorous or horrifying stories from my fishing and merchant marine background, from both here at home and internationally. All the vessel and people names have been changed for privacy, but I assure you every word coming out of my mouth is the truth as I saw it. This special first episode is called Confessions of a Party Boat Mate. It's going to be a list of just 5 things off the top of my head that as a mate used to make my blood boil, and 5 things that I used to love when a customer would do. Mind you, this list isn't all inclusive, but it definitely highlights some of the better points. Now, as far as the negatives, number 5, we were not babysitters. I understand you want to bring your kid fishing, but remember it's you that is taking the kid fishing. As a mate, my responsibility was safety of the vessel and safety of the customers. I would give the kids the best fishing I could, but nothing was sadder than seeing families ignore their kids just because they wanted to turn their brain off and catch their own fish. It really made it sad, and you could see in the kids that they hated being ignored, and often kids who were ignored would start acting out, which would then result in the families not being able to get the best experience they could. So, my advice there, pay attention to your family. You brought them fishing, so take them fishing. Number 4 would be back talk. And I'm talking about when you ask somebody to do something, it's for a special reason. If I tell you to jig your line or reel your line up to check the bait, or if I give you any instruction whatsoever, there was a reason for it. I may have seen a fish strike your line that you missed, or maybe somebody was tangled with you and you had yet to realize it. I'm not giving you instructions because I'm bored. I want you to catch fish. If you become flippant with me, I assure you that now I'm going to make it my project to mess with you. This surprisingly went more often with seasoned fishermen than it went for green anglers, because the fishermen who considered themselves, the serious fishermen, or those guys that we always used to call the pros, they were the ones who would take the criticism the worst. The number 3 are dirty people. And I'm not talking about hygiene, because I have seen some winners on the party boats. What I'm talking about are the scumbags who eat sunflower seeds or chew tobacco, or bubblegum chewers who think that the deck is a catch-all trash can. You are garbage people. You would lose your mind if I spit seeds on your carpet at home. And the boat is a mate's home, so show some common respect. Now, this also went for the people who thought it was okay to cut their own bait on the gunnel or on the bench on the boat. No, 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 no. Number 2 is the quarter-inch creep. Now, I can respect that fishing is the most expensive way a person can get a free meal. Size limits and quotas exist because the fishermen have taken way too many free meals from the ocean over the decades, and now the government believes it has to tell us what size and how many of what species we can keep. Now, whether you believe in the laws or not, a mate who is worth the money you tip him should not be swayed by your whining when your striper or flounder is a quarter-inch too short. You can try and browbeat me all you want, but I'm not going to let you keep a fish that's illegal, because I have integrity and I respect the law. It is the mate's livelihood after all, and I'm not going to jeopardize that for a regular customer, let alone some rando shoebie. If you give me crap because I threw back your undersized fish, good luck getting my attention when you really need it again. And finally, number 1 is the tipless scummer. As a party boat mate, you are often working for tips. Most party boats pay their mates a few hairs above minimum wage because they can dangle the tips over the mates' heads. We remember our good tippers, and our smart mates reward tippers. However, do you know what a mate remembers more than a good tipper? You always remember the people that scumbagged you, that didn't give you anything, that stiffed you of a tip. People who used to ask me what it was to have an appropriate tip, and I used to make the joke that you should make it hurt. But the reality is you should tip a mate the same way you would treat a waitress, bartender, or other server. Now, as a mate, I often saw customers do these 5 things, and I used to love them and would give them extra attention if they did it. Number 5 is pretty obvious. That's the pre-tipper. People who would pre-tip a mate before the trip were the people that I would give my extra attention to. And if I wasn't working in their section of the boat where they were fishing, I would bring their mate to them and give them the spiel to be taken care of. You know that the pre-tipper knows the fishing game, and they want to have fun, and they are not afraid to work with the mates to assure that that happens. These were the customers I would always get some extra bait or rigs to, even before the fishing started. Now, number 4 is the courteous neighbors. These were the usually regular customers who would actually engage with other customers, and they would help their fellow fishermen around them. They would catch fish, but they would even be personable, and I've even seen these people give other fishermen their own fish just because they understood that, man, not everybody has the same luck. And they would help out their fellow angler if a mate couldn't jump to it right away. Even if these were random people who were courteous neighbors, I would still make sure that they got a little extra attention. Number 3 is what I'll call the Wawa. I will not mention her name, but when I was still a mate, we had a sweet older woman who would fish with us, and she would always bring a large bag with her. Inside was all sorts of goodies, snacks, drinks, sandwiches, and whatnot. And as she fished, she would snack and drink, and you would always be offered something from her bag. It would take a hard man to say no to a sweet older fisherwoman who offered him a bottle of water or a ho-ho or something. As a mate, I always made sure she had water in her bucket and bait in her cup before the first lines hit the water. There were always these kinds of people on trips. You would get offered chips or drinks, often beers, which I always had to defer to until the trips were over and we were back at the dock for the day. And there was even times when you would get sandwiches or large soft pretzels. It was great. You always remembered these people, and you always took care of them, and they always took care of you. Next would be number 2, we'll call them the inquisitive student. Now, no one is God's gift to fishing, and it takes a big person to admit what they don't know. When I was a mate and would have someone come up to me directly and ask a question about how to fish, or how to jig, or how to keep their thumb on the spool, it would make me perk up and keep an eye on them, because you knew that they might not know what they're doing, they may be a beginner, but they were actually eager to learn, and instead of just going through the motions of factory fishing on a party boat. These people also almost always introduced themselves and their kids to the crew, and they were a general delight to work around. Now, number 1, I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent here, and that's the relaxed angler. Now, I love serious fishermen and anglers, green anglers alike, but the whole point of the trip is for everyone to have fun and to bend some rods. Now, occasionally you got that one angler who would just go out and be so happy with the experience from the moment you threw the lines off at the dock to the moment that you tied them back on later. They were perfectly happy sitting in the same spot for 6 hours with the same piece of bait on the hook and not even getting a nibble. Catching a fish was a secondary, if not unnecessary, part of their trip. They were just happy to be out. And these people always had a great vibe around them. And I would make sure I could always help them any way they needed, if I was even needed. Now, in the future, I'll probably expand this list, both the pros and the cons, at another time. But in the meantime, for you party boats, past and present mates out there, or you anglers who spend your time fishing on party boats, leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and please don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel so we can help it grow. Have a great day, tight lines, and good fishing.